All right. Well, hello world. That's my little programming joke. I'm a programmer here at Humanities Team, and I'm here to support and facilitate this mentoring session with Nassim Haramein. This is a live mentoring session and will be recorded. So if you would like to potentially come on screen, just be mindful that it will be recorded and shared online. So we will be fielding questions for Nassim using the Q&A section in the Zoom call. So if you have any curious questions that you'd like to learn more about from your experience in the Forbidden Science Masterclass that Nassim offers, or have been following his work for years and are just curious about some of the wisdom that he has to share, please reach out using the Q&A section. And we have Garth on our team as well, who will support and potentially bring some people online if you want to do some face-to-face and coming into this mentoring session with us. So with that, I want to start with just Nassim, thank you so much for joining us and supporting with Humanities Team, your work over the years, and joining us for this mentoring session and supporting more one-on-one FaceTime with the community. So I want to pass it to you for a moment before we get started with questions. If there's anything that you want to start, share, anything that's bubbling and alive in your world that you want the community to know about before we start getting into any of these questions.
I'm really excited to see what's going on in the world right now. I see more and more evidence of like an awakening of awareness in the world of the systems we've been working under and the changes that are required. So I'm very encouraged. As well, I'm, kind of like been in my cave mostly writing physics. I promised you all a paper and it's coming. It's more like a book. It's like 200 pages, a few thousand equations. And but I have something exciting coming up before that paper comes out. And it's a review paper that's going to be published in the next month or so. And it's not written by me. It's written by other physicists that are reviewing all of the work I've been publishing and actually setting the record straight about the holographic mass solution and many other things that I've predicted, and some of the theoretical work I've been doing, because there's some misconceptions out there. And these are really good physicists. One, like the head of that paper is a physicist that is his master's in Cambridge and his doctorate at the French Polytechnique, the Paris Polytechnique, or what's called X for short in France. And it's some of the most revered physicists that comes from that school. They're very, very highly rated, and they're thought to be the authorities. So it's nice to see that like more and more physicists are starting to get what I've been talking about. And as we're doing this, I'm helping them with this review paper. It's because the foundation of physics are actually not well understood, even by the top physicists in the world. It really kind of like shocks me. And as I'm discovering as well, kind of a shocking fact that many facts, that this 0 point energy field, or that this fundamental field of energy that all of mass emerge from, according to the holographic mass solution, but not only mass, charge, electromagnetic fields, gravity, and so on, that it all emerged from there. It's actually all there. Like if you go back to Max Planck's early equations, if you go all the way through the history of quantum theory, even the history of relativity, you find that this field is required. It's required at all levels. The problem is that it's been like completely like how do you say, mis quoted and misinterpreted and transferred. Like the names have been changed, so sometimes it's called the ground state, sometimes it's called quantum vacuum, sometimes it's called quantum foam, sometimes it's called vacuum fluctuations. And so it gets it gets messy, and it really kind of like blows your mind that it's there all along. The way, and you look at like physics reference um, books today and how physicists are taught physics, um, and you can see that basically all this has not been completely like the thread is missing. Like it's all disjointed, and you can write the equations without rigor. And if you write them without rigor, you can avoid having to talk about that field of infinite potential that just happens to be at the base of all of quantum physics, including QED and so on, and particle physics and so on in modern physics. Um, but it's not understood. So this paper kind of puts back things in order, and clarifies. And then that opens the door for the paper that's coming right after and unifies all physics. And it's straightforward, it's beautiful, and it's been there all along. And the old guys knew about it, and they all looked for the solution at the time, but they didn't have all the tools. They could tell this fundamental field was critical, right? And the reason I'm telling you all this, I mean, I know it's technical, but I'm telling you, you're baiting in a field of potential that has infinite energy, that has infinite potential. And it's really, really, really important, that it's really there. You can't get away from it in physics. There's a thing in physics called the Hamiltonian, which is like a way to like manage the energy of a system. In this case, in quantum physics, it's an oscillator. And basically it's all of quantum physics is based on this. And this basic oscillation, when you bring the system to 0 Kelvin, meaning when the oscillator has 0 thermodynamic excitation, like there's no input from some other thermodynamic source, the equations clearly show that it still oscillates. It still is dynamic, that there's this fundamental ground state. You don't get to 0. In fact, you get to infinity. You get to an infinite amount of energy when you're at 0 Kelvin. So it's and in the Hamiltonian, they can remove it in some cases. And that's what they do in modern physics. Typically, when they teach students, they just remove that part, like it's not there. But even when you do that, as you continue to solve the equation, if you're rigorous, it comes right back. You still can't get rid of it. But in any case, I'm kind of steep into it right now, and I'm just mind blown how that could have not been clearly, worked on. Although the ancient, like the old guys did, like Planck, Einstein, Dirac. Dirac made very, very important statements saying, this field, when it moves, when it flows, it must have some velocity, and it produces effects, physical effects like energy and mass and so on. but um and then Wheeler, there's we're talking about the best physicists ever in the world. They all got to that place where they're like, this fundamental field has got to be something really important in physics, but somehow that's not taught to physicists anymore. So even physicists that are trying to write about it, I have to educate them because it's so convoluted in the textbooks and so on. It's very hard to do that research and understand what's going on. It's extremely difficult in the historical context. You have to dig really deep, and you have to get back to the original papers, which are typically in German or in other languages, in Russian and so on. So you got to find the translation. People, and then you got to go line by line on the equations and rigorously understand the logic that was going on and where they were coming from. And you can totally see that modern physics just went sideways and totally missed it. Um, and you gotta wonder, like in some cases, how on purpose that was done. You gotta wonder, like what happened there. Anyway, so that was my rant for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. And just to briefly touch in on something that came up for me during that before turning over to some of the questions from the community. Reminds me, and just reflecting on your work, you talk about the old people who have been working in physics for a long time. You can go back even further and going into the philosophy side of things, about 2,500 years ago in Greek philosophy. And you talk about the Pythagoreans. There's two main schools of thought: the Pythagoreans, who'd break things down to the component shapes and geometries to understand it. And this is where modern science comes from. Science, Latin root sci, scissor to cut, cutting into component parts. This is what we see in modern physics as well, as we try to dive deeper and explode things to understand the parts of them. But what's really beautiful is there's another school of thought that really didn't get really picked up in modern culture and society, which is the holistic. We are a living system inside of a living system. And so what I see you and your work doing is really bridging that holistic living system, living universe perspective into the scientific, which really it's the hybridization in nature that creates the highest expression, and bringing these two seemingly disparate parts together to create a unified expression. So just kind of to share that a little bit with you and with the community, because the work that you're doing is really profound, and hope to see some big things come from that in the near future, which there's a number of questions in the chat. So if anybody is feeling inspired, please share some questions in the chat and we'll start bringing some on here soon. There's some questions about the free energy. The free energy.
What you were saying is really true, because like you can go all the way back to the ancient Greek, certainly the ancient Egyptians, the Mayans, the Incas, all like that field of infinite potential, that field of energy. Even in all the way up to Maxwell, when it was called ether. Before that, it was called all kinds of names, in Egypt and in Maya, Inca, and so on. It all had different names, Vedic traditions, and so on. They all had different names for it, but they all described the same thing. So it's been there for all this time, and it's like, yeah, and if you try to write physics in some idealized system that you think is not interacting with anything, it's kind of like as if it was outside our universe, outside reality. You can get like some important useful pieces of information about the system, but you can't understand the universe anymore, because there's a significant part missing to your understanding, because the rest of the universe is interacting with whatever you're studying. And this is what that field is. It's the interaction of all things. So really important.
Yes, beautiful. And that leads into a really good question that has come up in the Q&A. So anybody, again, reach out in the Q&A.
Just to finish on this, just to finish on this, this is why Wheeler, at the end of his life, while actually, somewhere in his late career, called Feynman in the middle of the night and said, I figured it out. There's only one electron and it's going across the universe really fast. We think it's a bunch of electrons, but it's just one thing. And I mean, he wasn't kidding when he said that. He was serious because he had studied that field, that fundamental field, and he had concluded that it was made out of trillions and trillions of wormholes that were connecting all the atoms together, and the electron was just going through all the wormholes really. And since it's instantaneous across entanglement, he just said there's just one thing. And he was right. Yeah, it's just he couldn't figure out the mechanics, and I think Feynman didn't get it. He just told him to go back to sleep.
Yeah. Well, it's beautiful because exactly what you're describing, a superluminal system faster than the speed of light, of instantaneous connection of everything in the universe, actually satisfies holographic theory of the information of the entirety represented in every single part. So that actually brings us to the next question in the community that I would like to, Garth, bring on live. Katharina, if I am saying that right. Katharina, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
I can. Welcome.
Oh, perfect.
So you shared a really great question in the Q&A, and I'd love for you to share that with Nassim so that we can hear from his perspective some of these, some of these pieces of wisdom about entanglement.
Yes, this would be perfect. In fact, there are two parts. I'll start with entanglement as we had this before. I just want to know if there is entanglement throughout all the scales. So are people entangled, are cells entangled, are protons entangled, are molecules entangled, universes, whatever. Do we have entanglement on all the scales?
Yes, absolutely. There's entanglement at all scales, all the way from Planck scale, which is the really tight mesh of entanglement that makes up this fundamental field, all the way to stars, galaxies, clusters, superclusters, universes even, all entangled. The whole thing is talking to itself. It's all connected. There's a theory that's emerging that's been there for like 15 years now. So I've been doing this for so long. For me, it's emerging, but it's called ER equals EPR, and Montesina and Sutskin and so on just realized that ER, which is wormholes, so it's Einstein Rosen, and EPR, which is Einstein Podolsky Rosen, are the same thing. That's why they put an equal between the two. So basically, entanglement is because things are connected through wormholes. And so the theory shows that, like, for instance, a particle pair that's produced near the event horizon of a black hole, one will fall in. They're both entangled through wormholes. The other one will fly away and fall into another black hole somewhere. And the result is that these black holes will be entangled. And so, everything is entangled. You can even think of it as if the current theory of the Big Bang, although I think it needs some revision, it all emerged from a point the size of a Planck pixel, and so everything coming out of it would be entangled at birth. So everything is entangled. Yeah, everything is connected. Everything is connected through space-time in such a way that they might not appear entangled when you're measuring them one beside each other. We can produce entanglement. We can force the particles to be entangled in a laboratory. If they come out of the same atom, like we hit it with a laser and like they come out and they're entangled. So in that case, we're measuring both sides. We're measuring both particles. So we can see that if we change one, the other one change instantaneously, even if they're very, very, very far apart. And that even if the distance between one and the other would be the speed of light, like they can get the distance far enough that at the speed of light, it wouldn't have time to change, right? So that they can show that it's happening instantaneously or faster than the speed of light, vastly faster than the speed of light. And so, the thing is that they think that there's particles that are single particles that are not, that not the whole universe is entangled in some cases, depending which physicist you're talking to. But clearly, it's not because you can't see the entanglement that that's the case. For instance, when I change the little particle on the end of my finger here, how do I know that's not entangled with another particle on the other side of the universe that's changing as soon as I change this one? I'm not measuring that other one, so I don't know. But there's many evidence that that's the case from theoretical tenets, and that the whole thing is just one thing in all scales.
Sounds great and freeing in a way. One more question: is this entanglement kind of a stabilizing factor for the whole? Stabilizing
Yes,
force?
of course. Yeah, of course. The result of this entanglement is that there's very specific scaling factors that makes so that the whole thing is stable. That's why the proton is stable, because if you take the information inside the volume of a proton, you get the exact mass of the universe, not approximately. You get what's called, rho crypt, which is the critical mass of the universe, which includes dark matter and dark energy and all this. And so basically you get the exact correct value for the dynamic of space, but like inside one proton. So since the outside information and the inside information is equal, you have a completely stable system, completely coherent, stable system that stays stable for billions of years. We've never seen a proton decay. We don't see protons lose their energy. We don't see protons stop going. And that's why, in some ways I make fun a little bit, when I talk to physicists and I say, okay, what do you think of perpetual motion? And they tell me that doesn't exist. There's no such thing as perpetual motion. Everything is bound by entropy. And I asked them, well, then point at something in the universe that's not perpetual. Just find me one thing that's not perpetual. And you can't. They're stuck because protons don't go away. They don't. So like you can say, well, eventually after they try, stars blow up, and like, yeah, but all the protons are still there, like they're just going through cycles. Eventually they go, we die, well, okay, we die, but like every atom we were made of, and every proton we've ever been made of, are still all there. There's not one thing that went away, like nothing went away, right? So we see changes in organization and level of organization, but we don't see, loss of information, loss of energy. It's all conserved, which is their own theory, that it's all conserved, right? So, there's incongruent, relationship in their own equation. It's remarkable the lack of congruence and clarity. For instance, we have theories that says that that information or energy is conserved, meaning it cannot just go away. It's just changing state, right? Well, at the same time, so these are conservation laws. They're some of the most important laws in current physics. At the same time, we have a theory that says the universe started with a bang of some energy that we don't say where it comes from. So we violate conservation laws in the first instant of the creation of the universe by saying all energy, all mass, all space-time was created in this one blast, which we don't say where that energy come from to do that. So it's incongruent. And that's just because we don't have this fundamental field. As soon as you realize that this fundamental field is there, then you can start to see, of course, you have cycles and changes and evolution, because the field is learning about itself.
Beautiful, which is exactly where we're at right now in this mentoring session Q&A. We are learning about ourselves in a deeper way. Katharina, thank you so much for those questions and supporting us in going more deeply into ourselves. And Nassim, thank you for highlighting some of that.
Question. May I ask a second question? I have the first, in fact, I wrote.
Katina, okay? I'd like to move on to some other questions just to make sure that more people in the community get to ask the questions. Thank you so much. Maybe you can join in one of the other mentoring sessions that we have with Nassim and surface some greater depth.
Okay.
Cool. Thank you. Well, one of the things I heard in that, Nassim, that you've alluded to and spoke about in your work in the past is around the Big Bang not being resonant, Resonant Science Foundation, not being resonant with that whole picture philosophy view of life in the universe. There's a question by Gabrielle about what is your concept of the Big Bang? And I'd love for you to go into that. And just to speak of, I remember one of the first things I saw on you as a talk, and you said the picture in modern physics books of the balloon with the little coins on the outside and the expanding universe. And you're like, who's this guy? So I'd really love for you to kind of share a little bit about that, because it speaks to creating a model that is actually fitting to this unified physics that you're speaking to.
Yeah, of course. I used to make a little bit of fun of the model of the expanding universe, because at the time that I was doing this, I could tell that there was a source of energy that was missing. Like, the guy that's blowing the balloon, that is blowing the universe in the picture books of, this is a picture in Gravitation, one of the most serious book on relativity and space-time of modern history, written by Wheeler, Meissner, and Thorne. Those are giants in physics. And so, and in the middle of it, can't remember the page. It's a thick book, right? There is a picture of the guy blowing the balloons, and there's pennies stuck to it, and the pennies are moving away. It's to give a visual that the pennies are galaxies and they're moving away from each other, and the universe is expanding. And I'm like, yeah, nice model, but what I want to know is who's the guy that's blowing in the balloon, because without that guy, nothing is happening. And at the time, my answer to that was, well, you have vacuum fluctuation. You have what physicists call negative energy, because it's, instead of contracting, it's expanding. And it's not negative energy. It's just a centropic part of creation. There's entropic part of creation, there's this entropic part of creation. And so basically, you have, and at the time, my point is that quantum vacuum fluctuation is what's doing the job. And at the time, it was considered completely crazy to say that, because it was thought that quantum effects had zero impact at the cosmological scale, never mind at the universal scale. Eventually they found that the universe was not expanding and slowing down as they thought it should be in terms of entropy, right? You would think if entropy rules, then everything should like slow down, after the bang. Well, instead they found that the universe is accelerating. And so when they found the universe was accelerating, they had to modify Einstein's equation to put a term in there that called lambda, that initially Einstein had put in to make the universe static. Then he removed it when Hubble discovered that it was expanding. And I'm not talking about the Hubble telescope, I'm talking about the man Hubble. When they discovered that, he removed lambda from his equation because his equation appropriately predicted that the universe should be expanding. He didn't need to put that fudge factor in. And then when they found that it was accelerating, they re-put lambda, but with a negative sign in front of it, like a negative energy, so that it can, so instead it would be accelerating the universe. And so they re-put the fudge factor in, and they said, well, it seems like that could be quantum vacuum fluctuation that are doing this fundamental field I'm talking about that's doing this, which is now called dark energy. Nothing dark about it. And so basically, this is so what's the correct view? Well, the correct view is most likely that that universes, and this is actually a paper that Einstein published in 2013. Now, you might ask, how did Einstein publish a paper in 2013? Because he was long under 6 feet of dirt, in 2013. Well, it's because they actually had found at the University of Tel Aviv a paper that hadn't been published by Einstein, where in this paper he said literally that atoms were being created from this quantum vacuum of energy in the structure of space, and that protons were escaping our universe, but that vacuum fluctuation was making protons, and so it was creating a steady state universe of creation, a creation universe where instead of saying all atoms were produced in the Big Bang, it was saying atoms are continuously being produced and atoms are continuously being lost from our universe. Well, imagine an atom, a proton, that has the mass of the information of all the other protons in the universe escaping our universe. Well, when it escapes, it's entangled with ours still, right? It escapes in a larger universe, and that larger universe has a completely different density, much lower density on the outside. So that proton is gonna blow up, like it's gonna grow like crazy, and probably produce a universe like ours. And so you can imagine the surface of universes producing new universes, like continuously producing these bubbles of universes, one of which we're in. And that's why our universe is entangled with all the other ones. And that's why there's probably life everywhere in all universes, because they're all entangled. So they're all talking to each other. So they're all growing together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nassim. And, you paint a very vivid picture in that. And I know with the Resonance Foundation, you do a lot of animation. So I'm really excited to see that reach animation form. I don't know, do you have something like that at this point in terms of animation to view?
I don't. I don't, and I really have so many animations I want to do, and they're pretty costly to make. And so, with more and more resources as we move forward, I'm hoping to be able to like make really amazing, not only animations, but simulation, literally from the equations, producing the universe. I have everything I need now. It's gonna be in the papers I publish. So I actually have everything I need to give to a computer for the computer to make us a universe, simulate the universe. So it will be really, really nice to have these simulation and animation to like visualize, for people to visualize what I'm talking about.
Right. It's very powerful to do that. And so it's sending you lots of love and support to make that visualization and simulation possible and more accessible to people.
Yeah,
which is, I think,
right on.
it leads in next to the next question. I want to say Taya Fast, but brings in up a great question, which is bringing it to the more grounded, practical side of things. We're talking very mental exploration, consciousness of the universe, and we're on the human level and plane. And so there's Taya, you have a great question that fits in perfectly here. Are you with us? Oh,
Thank
you're
you.
on mute. There you go.
I'm just taking in that there is no entropy. I'm going, oh, if there is no entropy, maybe there was no beginning either. And my question was,
Very good.
how do you use your worldview to navigate your life? And I'm finding the connected universe is like an antidote to all the divide and conquer going on in the world. And so I was asking if you have any ideas for how we can prove this to ourselves constantly throughout our day.
It's a really good question. I think these worldviews I'm discussing, which are supported by formal, mathematics, really points to the fact that within each one of your protons, within each one of your atoms, within each one of your cell, which are made 100 trillion protons, that you have all the information, all the connection to the universe. And so we have a tendency, I was talking about that with some of the physicists that are trying to write this review paper for next month. And, they were saying, we're really struggling with infinities. And I'm like, yeah, well, okay, there's the part with the equations, that's one thing, but internally, why are you struggling with infinities? And it's because generally when somebody thinks about infinities, they insist on thinking of infinitely big, and your senses are really limited on the outside of yourself. They don't get anywhere close to infinities. You can only touch so far, you can only see so far, you can only feel so far, and so on. So actually within so you have to consider infinitely small. And then if you conceptualize infinitely small, you can actually feel the infinitely small within you, which connects you to the infinitely big, because it's all entangled. And so to actually spend time every day to feel the infinitely small, to feel my connection with the whole through the inside of me, through the atomic structure I'm built with. And then to feel that connection with the atomic structure all around me, like the chair I'm sitting on and the desk and the computer. And, it's easier to feel with nature, right? Like with the trees. And like I live in the mountains here in a beautiful setting, so it's like, wow, like this feeling of connection, of union. And if we can feel that with one another, then the division stops, right? Then we start to feel, the unity of humanity and the struggle and the importance of all viewpoints. And, and as well, the importance to find, the sharp edge of the median between opinions, like the consensus, the connection, the place where it all connects, right? Which, the Buddha called the middle path. He said the middle path was the path to enlightenment, right? And so it's really, really important to spend some time to explore our inner infinities and to connect with our inner self that way. And then as a result, we increase our influence in the network field. We get more powerful, we get more centered and strong and so on. And then that results in a very powerful capacity to have an influence on our world that's positive, and an influence on our life, on our individual lives and the lives of the people around us that's positive.
So cultivating coherence and balance and harmony and contemplating unity.
Yeah, contemplate, like doing all these things, harmony and coherence and all this comes from like spending a little bit of time every day going towards center, going towards infinitely small. And so that centers you, so then it's easier. We're all gonna fail though. And so you gotta be good with yourself. You're gonna get pissed off. You're gonna do the wrong thing. You're gonna say the wrong thing, whatever. You're gonna have problems with your friends, your family, whatever. But if you know how to get to the center of you, then you can always go back there and recover, right? And if you can, and faster you can recover, better it is and easier it is. And like all kinds of things emerge from it, because as you start feeling the oneness, you start to appreciate, appreciation comes naturally. You start to appreciate the tree and the blade of grass and the bugs and, and the mountains. And hopefully you start to appreciate your partner and you appreciate your kids and you appreciate, which can be harder than appreciating the tree over there, right? So, this is really kind of critical part of your day, is to find that center, to find that point of center inside yourself, that infinity that you're expressing. In an infinite field, every point is the center. You realize that? So that means that every point observes the field from its own perspective. There is no other points that's observing the field from the same perspective. Like, I show you this cup of tea. It was chocolate. It was, not tea. Sorry, it was chocolate milk. Hot chocolate actually. And so you see this side, I see this side. I'm seeing a completely different part of this reality than you are, right? So it's not so So you're going to get a different set of information. I'm going to get a different set of information. But, you know, the consensus set of information is going to make this cup of tea, this cup of hot chocolate, right? You see, it's all of us together that produces the reality, not everybody individually. And so this is a misconception in spiritual awareness, is that you're creating your reality. In some, you know, in some respect, you're creating a part of your reality, but the full equation is that reality is creating you as well. And that's the reality of everybody else influencing you. So it's a consensus reality. It's a oneness thing, you know?
Thank you.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Taya. That
My
was a great
pleasure.
question, and that brought out some really good wisdom there from you, Nassim. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I just want to be mindful, we're about 15 minutes to the top of the hour, and that is a current time frame for doing this Q&A mentoring session with Nassim. So if you have any other questions that are coming up, now's your time to get them into the Q&A so that we can potentially bring you on and share some of the more of the wisdom that Nassim is bringing through. To add on, there's one other piece in a question in a similar vein that I'd love to just surface. And that is around, yeah, I'm just going to read the question in the Q&A. It's from Zed. How do you see the revolutionary ideas that your excellent insight is generating can be practically applied when the current system is designed to prevent any threats to the existing hegemony of politics, science, and education? What, if you can share, is your strategy with those social systems?
I see. Are you bringing her on or him on, or no? Okay.
We tried to. I
Oh,
thought
I
it
see.
fit into bringing it into the more physical, grounded implementation layer.
Nice.
So
Yeah. So I think what they're asking is the application of this theories. So that I think they realize already that there's applications that are very groundbreaking, like extraction of energy from the vacuum, extraction or production of gravitational effects, like gravity control, basically, which would give us space travel capacities that are, you know, actually useful, like better, you know, more useful than rockets, you know, which are really not really the way to travel through the universe. And so control of gravity, extraction of energy, all these things are really important, including the fact that since all atomic structure and biological structure emerge from this coherence of the field, the decoherence that we call aging, and eventually, you know, succumbing to too much decoherence in our cells, because basically aging is just our cells making errors when they're making copies, and they're making errors because they're running out of energy. Their mitochondria and the ATP production goes down in cells, and then they get weaker, and then they start making errors when they copy. All of this energy production, cell energy levels, and gravity control can come out of this understanding and equations. So just want to say that might be one of the reasons it was canceled out of physics in many different ways. I'm just gonna throw that out there. And I think that's what that person is referring to, is like, how do you get that through to the political and military industrial complex? Well, you know, it's not obvious. I need all of you. I really, really do. I need all of you. I need all of you to support research. We're about to do like a large, sharing for fundraising and so on, and we need like all your support to have enough resources to be able to push it through. But more importantly, or as importantly, we have to have people wake up and say, okay, enough is enough. We need to go to the next level. We need to go, like to a new level of understanding and governments and governance. You know, I can't give you the whole strategy because it's part of the strategy to not reveal the strategy. But well, actually, it's pretty straightforward. But in general, um, we are in the middle of a big transition, global transition. It's really important that the information is not asymmetric. That is, that it's symmetrically distributed around the world so that not one country gets it, but that all countries gets it at the same time. And it's really important that like the whole world comes together. So the strategy has to involve, being able to be in a position that is very neutral relative to all the countries, and and that has enough connection to many other countries around the world to be able to like transfer the information appropriately and so on. So it's a big job. It's almost, and some would say maybe harder than actually writing the physics or making the tech. It's that part is the crux, because many have got there and didn't make it, right? So we have to make sure we make it, and that requires all of your help. Every single one of you, we need your help. If it's not directly financial help or support in any way, it might be just you tuning in every day and visualizing through your infinitely capacity that this work and this type of technology will enter the world, and that we will transcend this moment in human evolution, which is a difficult moment.
Absolutely. And just want to tap in just for a moment, because I have a lot of experience with this. And you talk about evolution, and endosymbiotic evolution is something that drives the eukaryotes in growing from bacteria to single cell to multi-cell to trillion cell organisms. And now we're 100 trillion cells as humans operating together as a single consciousness. Speaking of the disparate, all the cells have all the information, but operate together as a unified consciousness. And so evolutionarily speaking, it makes sense that we're in a similar place planetarily. And that's why we're facing a lot of these challenges. We see this in the evolutionary past. And as my work as a developer on the internet, I kind of see like the internet as like the central nervous system of the planet that supports us in getting to that unified consciousness, but requires us to be able to use it with that level of reverence and respect as we are using it to come together as a whole. So right. There's a lot that fits into all of that, but
yes.
Just
it's true. That brings and yep. Go ahead.
I was going to say, it brings up a great question that came up in the audience as well, and it ties into the entanglement question that got brought up earlier in consciousness. And so I'd really love to bring on, what was this person's name? Paige. Garth, would you bring on Paige, please? All right, might take a second here. Yeah, and in the meantime, let's see, it's the next couple seconds or so, but there we go.
There we go.
Paige, are you with us?
Hi, Paige.
Hi. Yeah, thank you so much. Hi, Nassim. Oh my gosh.
Hi. It's been so long. Oh my God.
I have so many questions and you've answered so many of them, but I want to be quick here. The thing that's kind of burning for me right now is the sense that
I just want to say, Paige knew me when I lived in a van in Vancouver, in Whistler, British Columbia. We were band buddies, and she saw me working diligently, as I developed these theories in the van in the 90s, early 90s. Are you still in Squamish?
Yep, still in Squamish. Just sold my third van. Can't get rid of vans. They're the best way to live without being free. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I'll tell you what, like meeting you and learning this stuff in the mid 90s has changed my life. Like everything I've done and my whole worldview since then has been informed by what I learned with you. And but one thing, okay, I do want to ask my question super quick. It's this sticky problem of this sense of being this individual separate consciousness. The whole entanglement, the quantum mechanics, all of it is telling us, and mystics and spirituality, they're all telling us it's all connected, it's all one, blah, blah, blah. That's why my name is Page One now. But this stickiness, this like, oh, it's me and it's the world against me, and this sense of taking things personally. Why do we have this sense of being so individual and separate, given that all of what you're saying is true?
Because it's correct. You are individual, because like I was saying earlier, every point observes the universe from a completely different perspective. You are like as individual as it can get. Like there is nothing in the universe that is observing the universe as Paige is. Paige is, observing the universe in its own. And this is why your iris is not the same as anybody else. Your fingerprint is not the same as anybody else. There's absolutely zero in the universe that is Paige, other than Paige. There's just Paige. And so, yeah. And so there, and through that, you're observing all the other individualizations of the universe, billions of them. Like this is what's so beautiful. It's like every expression of the universe is like expressing itself all around you. Like every way you can imagine it can express itself, it is, and so you're part of this as an individual. You're bringing this really important piece. It's Paige piece to creation. Like creation is requiring Paige to bring its piece, right? You can't even get away from it. Like you can't, like you might change body and stuff, but you're just gonna continue to bring Paige, perspective to the universe. And so it's that middle path between being the whole and being the individual that is the point of enlightenment. That is like knowing that you're the individual, so knowing you're the master, and at the same time knowing that everybody else is as well, that everything is in mastery, everything is in perfection, everything is like so incredibly coherent. And the bee knows where the flowers is, and the flower, and they make the flower propagate, and then it gets honey, and so honey can go on your toast, so that Paige can observe the universe. And like the whole thing is like so amazing, coordinated, and in this dance of creation, this dance of perfectness between the individual to infinity and the whole to infinity. like the infinitely small and the infinitely big. And so finding that balance between the two is so critical. It's that fine edge that the Buddha was looking for. And so it's not easy. It's not easy. It's a little scary because, like, you know, you feel your power, right? And then the ego says, no, you're not that, right? And so but inside you feel this power, so you, like, but then you don't know how to express this power without like upsetting people around you, right? So how do you do that? You have to remember that they're the master too, right? So if they're the master too, then your relationship to them comes from a different place, right? Come from, oh yeah, you're the master. You see, this is at one point the Buddha was asked, Buddha, we're really confused because we're your student for all this time, and you keep saying everything is the Buddha, everything is one thing, like everything, and it's like we don't feel like the Buddha, right? So what's the difference between the Buddha and you, and between us and the Buddha? Like clearly we're not the Buddha, and the Buddha answered, the Buddha knows it's the Buddha. You know, that's all. That's the only difference. Yeah, you have to know that you are the master in order to be the master. But if your ego keeps telling you you're not the master, right? Because it's too threatening to the ego, like, oh my God, like people are gonna think I'm crazy, or you know, whatever. Like if you're worried, then you can't be the master. So of course, then you're not the master. And then it gets really, you know, so but saying you're the master doesn't mean that you're saying that the other ones aren't. Actually, all the masters said, you are the master, right? You know, so you see, it's that relationship between the individual mastery and the external expressions that are coming from all different other angles. And man, I struggle with it all the time. You know that. You've seen me like flailing, right? And so basically, you know, but I'm getting better at realizing, wow, you know, this person is seeing something completely different than me, but it's totally valid for them, right? Because from their perspective, it's absolutely correct, right? Like, and so like, how do I find, you know, how do I manage, how do I find that place where we can meet, right? Where, you know, so like, if I have a wheel turning between you and me, and it's spinning, and I'm saying it's going clockwise, you will say for sure that it's going counterclockwise. And you know, like it will be so obvious to you, and it'll be so obvious to me that you're wrong, you know, and we could have a debate about it for an eternity. But the fact is that the wheel is spinning, and it's the same wheel. And so if we realize we're just having two different experiences of the same thing, then we find the connection in the individuality of the experience.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Nassim.
It's a
and
hard
Paige,
thing.
great question.
It's so good.
I'll join you in that one.
Yeah.
Cool.
I look
Well,
forward to seeing you again.
I'm glad that life aligned to bring together that little synchronicity. And to the question earlier for me, you know, it's like when I see those alignments and synchronicities is when I feel more connected to the infinite universe. And that's what I try to reinforce, seeing those beautiful magical alignments come through. So we're a little past the top of the hour. There's been so many great questions that have come in. We're not going to be able to get all of them today. I want to honor your time, Nassim. I know that you have a lot going on, a lot that you're creating in the world and sharing. So I think it'd be great to dovetail into closing, where it's an opportunity for you to share. There's been a few questions about how to get engaged in your work, how to support, volunteer, this type of thing. So I'd love for you to share a little bit about the Resonance Science Foundation and some of the other projects that you're working on and ways that people might be able to get engaged.
Well, you know, the Resonance Science Foundation is in current like changes is happening to all my organization, Taurus Tech laboratories, Art Crystal and everything. Everything is fluxing so that we can get in the right alignment for this, you know, work to come out in the appropriate way. And so there is changes that are occurring that are really important. So it's really important for people to like connect with the Resonance Science Foundation and register, and so that they can follow where things are going to go, because they're going to explode into something really, really powerful. And I need you guys to help make that happen. And so you know, at resonancescience.org, you can register and you can take a course for free. I made it free since the beginning of COVID. And like there's like 7 different chapters or modules that you can take. It's quite extensive. It's got all the science, but it's written in layman's term. And then module 7 is like kind of a review of all the papers I wrote before. And then module 8 will come out, but it will be under a different structure. So get ready for a change in structure. And I can't talk about it right now, but I'm really excited about it. So I just stay with us, stay connected, be ready. There's going to be a big explosion. Like there's going to be a big thing that's happening. And module 8 will come out and explain all the new paper that's going to come out. And you know, it's going to take a few months still because we're preparing. But, you know, in the next few months, they're going to be important moments that you can get involved in. And we're trying to actually open up the structures so that the community can get involved inside the structure, and, you know, build the support so that we can, you know, bring this to the world in a very powerful way. So we need your help.
Beautiful.
In any way, shape, or form that you can help.
Thank you, Nassim. It reminds me evolutionarily of the caterpillar to butterfly, the transition that you're in right now. And no doubt that the butterfly that is emerging is going to float around the world and make some really big impact and change. So again, thank you so much for your work and the work that you've done over the years and the work that you did with Forbidden Science and sharing that with the community. Thank you so much for the community that has showed up for Humanities team. And may this be an opportunity for that evolution, growth, change, transformation to really echo out into the world in a more profound way, to support the catalyzing.
Thank you.
The world we know in our heart is possible.
Thank you for helping me connect with your community and making it happen. And like, I'm so grateful for all the amazing support from people in your community that has helped us. Let's connect all the communities together and let's change the world. Let's make it happen. It's happening. We're just on this amazing ride. It's like surfing big waves. Now the wave is getting big. So we got to pedal hard because we got to get in it.
Yep. Energy's building. Beautiful. Again,
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Nassim. Thank you so much, community,
Thank
Humanities
you.
community, for coming out. I think we're going to be doing another mentoring session in the not too distant future. So keep your ears out in the emails from Humanities team. And as always, tune in to some of the other amazing programs that we have on Humanities team and get inspired to the more beautiful, connected one world we live in. So thank you. And
Thank you so much.
Yeah. May the flow be with you all as we go forward and out into the world.
May the vacuum be with you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Love you all.